The Cleveland Browns have officially turned what should have been a routine quarterback announcement into one of the most talked about controversies in the NFL. Instead of headlines praising rookie Dillon Gabriel for stepping into the QB1 role, all eyes are locked on Shedeur Sanders, the young quarterback buried at QB3 who seems to be driving more conversation than the starter himself. Fans aren't buying the decision. To them, keeping Joe Flacco at QB2 while Shedeur sits on the bench feels like a slap in the face. Flacco's veteran presence is undeniable, but his best days are behind him. Sanders, meanwhile, is the spark everyone's waiting to see. The one who brings energy, attention, and a marketable edge that Cleveland hasn't had in years. So when he's pushed down the depth chart, the reaction is predictable. Outrage, confusion, and non-stop debate. That debate reached a boiling point when Stephen A. Smith weighed in. Never one to hold back. He blasted the Browns for the move, calling it flat-out politics. His argument? It makes no sense to have Sanders sitting behind Flacco, a quarterback clearly in the twilight of his career, instead of letting him grow into that QB2 role. Stephen A. didn't stop there. He predicted it's only a matter of time before Sanders takes the field, whether the team likes it or not. Then came Cam Newton, and his comments cut even deeper. Newton, who knows firsthand what it's like to be labeled as too flashy or too confident, suggested Sanders is being sabotaged. In his view, the Browns' leadership doesn't want Shedeur to succeed in Cleveland, and that his personality, his aura, has been twisted into arrogance by decision-makers who just don't understand him. And that's what makes this story so explosive. It's no longer about depth charts or practice reps. It's about power, perception, and the politics of football. Sanders is no longer just a rookie. He's a storyline. And until the Browns give him a real shot, every press conference, every game, and every loss is going to circle back to the same burning question. When will Shedeur Sanders finally get his chance? When Stephen A. Smith speaks, the sports world listens. And when it comes to the Cleveland Browns quarterback controversy, he didn't just speak, he unleashed. On national television, Stephen A. lit into the Browns for one decision that has the entire fan base scratching their heads, placing Joe Flacco at QB2 while Shedeur Sanders remains stuck at QB3. To Stephen A., the logic simply doesn't add up. Dillon Gabriel is QB1? That makes sense. He's young, he's talented, and he deserves the opportunity to prove himself on the field. But keeping Flacco, a quarterback well past his prime, ahead of Sanders? That's where the frustration boiled over. In his words, this wasn't football strategy, it was politics. Flacco, he argued, is little more politics than a placeholder, a mentor, someone you keep around the locker room for advice, not someone you rely on to step in and win games. Sanders, on the other hand, represents the future. He's exciting. He's marketable. He has the kind of star power that can make even a regular season game feel like must-watch television. By refusing to give him that QB2 role, Stephen A. suggested, the Browns aren't just holding Sanders back, they're holding themselves back. And he didn't stop there. Stephen A. predicted that fans won't have to wait long to see Sanders in action. Unless Gabriel comes out playing lights-out football from day one, Cleveland will eventually have no choice but to give Shedeur the ball. And when that happens, all the second-guessing about depth charts and politics will look like wasted time. What made his rant resonate wasn't just his delivery. It was the way he voiced what fans were already thinking. To them, the Browns' decision feels like a refusal to embrace the obvious. They've seen enough of Flacco to know what he brings. They've heard enough about Sanders to want to see him on the field. And now, thanks to Stephen A., that frustration has been blasted on the loudest stage in sports media. If Stephen A. Smith's comments set the fire, Cam Newton poured gasoline all over it. The former NFL MVP didn't tiptoe around the subject. He went straight at the Cleveland Browns, suggesting that Shedeur Sanders isn't just being overlooked, he's being sabotaged. Newton has always been outspoken about the politics of football, And this time was no different. In his view, Sanders has everything a modern quarterback needs: poise, charisma, leadership, and talent. But instead of celebrating that, the Browns have turned it into a problem. According to Cam, Shedeur's aura, the confidence and presence that makes him stand out, is being twisted into arrogance. And in the NFL, he said, that's a label that can stick unfairly. What makes Newton's take so powerful is that he's lived this story before. Early in his career, he was criticized for smiling too much, for celebrating too loudly, for being too confident in a league that often wants quarterbacks to stay quiet and play it safe. To him, Shedeur's situation feels like déjà vu, a young, dynamic player being boxed in by decision-makers who are uncomfortable with his shine. Newton didn't stop there. He went further, saying flat out that he doesn't believe the Browns want Sanders to succeed in Cleveland. That's a heavy accusation, but it hit home with fans already suspicious of the front office. To them, it sounded less like conspiracy and more like confirmation of what they've been feeling: that the Browns are deliberately dragging their feet, waiting for Sanders to fail before he even gets a chance. Those words sparked an immediate reaction. On social media, fans rallied behind Newton's comments, calling Sanders a future star being kept in the shadows. Others pointed out the irony. A franchise desperate for quarterback stability now risks alienating the one player who could actually provide it. And whether you agree with Newton or not, his message was clear. This isn't just about football. It's about politics, perception, and the double standards that young quarterbacks like Sanders face the moment they step into the league. On paper, the Browns' quarterback depth chart looks simple enough. Dillon Gabriel at QB1, Joe Flacco at QB2, and Shedeur Sanders tucked away at QB3. But in reality, this lineup has sparked more questions than answers. And to many, it feels less like football strategy and more like pure politics. Let's start with Dillon Gabriel. Nobody's denying his talent or his experience. After 6 years in college and 64 games played, he's got the reps, the maturity, and the discipline to justify being named the starter. That's fine, but the real issue comes right behind him. Why is Joe Flacco still holding the backup role when his best years are clearly behind him? Flacco has been praised as a mentor, someone who can guide young players and provide veteran wisdom. But let's be honest, mentorship doesn't win games. When a starter goes down, QB2 is supposed to be the guy who can step in and give your team a chance. And right now, nobody seriously believes Flacco gives Cleveland the best chance at anything other than survival mode. That's why Shedeur Sanders sitting at QB3 feels like a slap in the face. He's young, explosive, and brings a level of excitement that Flacco simply can't. Fans don't tune in to watch a safe, aging arm throw checkdowns all night. They tune in to see potential stars light up the field. And Sanders, whether the Browns want to admit it or not, is that star in waiting. So why the hesitation? Reports and reactions point to politics. Flacco is a safe choice, someone the coaching staff trusts, even if his play is uninspiring. Sanders, on the other hand, represents risk. He's bold, he's flashy, and he comes with media attention that Cleveland doesn't seem ready to handle. To some, this decision screams of a coaching staff protecting its own comfort zone rather than embracing the future. And here's the kicker. Everyone knows this situation isn't sustainable. The moment Gabriel struggles, fans will demand change. And when that time comes, Flacco won't be the answer. Sanders will. The Cleveland Browns thought they were making a simple depth chart decision, but what they really did was open the door to a narrative battle they can't control. On one side, you've got the team trying to frame Dillon Gabriel as the steady rookie starter, with Joe Flacco as the dependable veteran mentor. On the other, you've got the media, fans, and even former players spinning the story in a completely different direction, one where Shedeur Sanders is the hero being held back. And make no mistake, the media loves this storyline. Headlines aren't focused on Gabriel's chance to shine or Flacco's experience. They're locked in on Sanders. Every press conference, every sideline clip, every vague answer from Coach Stefanski gets turned into fuel for the free Shedeur fire. The coverage has shifted from football analysis to almost tabloid-level drama, and Cleveland has become the stage. The Browns' silence isn't helping either. Stefanski's measured, almost robotic responses come across as dismissive, which only makes things worse. Instead of putting the controversy to bed, the team's vague explanations feed the speculation. Is Sanders really not ready? Or is the coaching staff afraid of what happens if he succeeds too quickly? Meanwhile, Sanders himself has played the media game with surprising savvy. From trolling reporters in interviews to keeping his confidence front and center, he's feeding into the narrative without ever saying too much. The more the Browns try to quiet the conversation, the louder it gets. At this point, the Browns aren't just fighting to win games. They're fighting to control the story. And in today's NFL, perception is almost as powerful as performance. Fans want Sanders. The media wants Sanders. Even rival players are talking about Sanders. Cleveland can try to stick to their script, but the narrative has already slipped out of their hands. And here's the real danger. Once a franchise becomes the villain in the public eye, every mistake gets magnified. Every interception, every loss, every bad decision will circle right back to the same storyline, that the Browns are holding their future hostage. To understand why this quarterback debate refuses to die, you have to understand Shedeur Sanders. He isn't just another rookie fighting for a roster spot. He's a brand, a headline generator, and one of the most marketable young athletes the NFL has seen in years. Shedeur comes with name recognition few rookies can match. As Deion Sanders' son, he grew up in the spotlight, and he learned how to handle it. That's why fans see him not only as a quarterback, but as a natural-born star. Every move he makes, from a sideline smile to a cryptic social media post, generates attention. For a league built on ratings, sponsorships, and viral highlights, that kind of magnetism is priceless. But it's not just about his last name. Sanders has real talent. His poise under pressure at Colorado and his ability to extend plays showed flashes of what he can bring at the pro level. Combine that with his confidence, sometimes mistaken for arrogance, and you have the exact kind of player who thrives in today's NFL. He's the type of quarterback who can connect with younger audiences, sell jerseys, and bring casual fans into the game. That's why his placement at QB3 feels so controversial. It's not just about football, it's about opportunity lost. By holding Sanders back, the Browns risk missing out on more than just wins. They risk losing fan engagement, merchandise sales, and national buzz. In a city desperate for excitement, Sanders represents hope. Hope that the Browns can finally move beyond their history of quarterback failures. Hope that the franchise can be relevant in a way that stretches beyond the field. Every time Sanders is overlooked, it feels less like a coaching decision and more like a wasted chance to embrace the future. And that's why this story has legs. Fans don't just want to see Sanders play. They need to. He represents something bigger than a depth chart. He's the bridge between football and entertainment, between tradition and the modern NFL. And sooner or later, whether the Browns like it or not, that spotlight is going to find him. So here's the big question. Where does this story go from here? Because the truth is, this quarterback saga isn't just about the present. It's about the future of the Cleveland Browns. Dillon Gabriel has been handed the keys as QB1, and that's fine, for now. But the leash on him will be short. If Gabriel comes out shaky, struggles to move the ball, or worse, piles up turnovers, fans won't be patient. The chance for Shedeur Sanders will grow louder with every failed drive. And once that noise reaches a certain volume, even the most stubborn coaching staff can't ignore it. Then there's Joe Flacco. As long as he sits at QB2, he's a safety blanket for the Browns, but not one that excites fans. If Gabriel falters and the team turns to Flacco, expect the backlash to be immediate. People already view him as a stopgap, not a solution. Any attempt to roll him out as the answer will be met with frustration and anger from a fan base that's been waiting decades for something different. That leaves Sanders, the wild card that everyone knows is coming sooner or later. And that's the real tension here. The Browns can delay his debut, they can try to control the narrative, but they can't avoid the inevitable. Shedeur Sanders will get his chance. It's just a matter of when. The stakes are huge. If Sanders comes in and delivers, he could instantly change the trajectory of the Browns' season, and more importantly, the future of the franchise. If he struggles, critics will say the hype wasn't justified. Either way, the Browns have set themselves up for a season where every decision, every play, and every press conference will be magnified through the lens of this quarterback controversy. And that's why the story won't die. Because no matter what happens on the field, the spotlight is locked on Shedeur Sanders. The Browns may control who starts, but they don't control the narrative anymore. At the end of the day, this isn't just about who's listed first, second, or third on a depth chart. It's about perception, politics, and the future of an entire franchise. The Cleveland Browns have managed to turn what should have been a straightforward quarterback announcement into one of the most polarizing storylines of the NFL season. On paper, Dillon Gabriel has earned his chance. He's experienced, he's disciplined, and he deserves the opportunity to prove himself. Joe Flacco brings veteran stability, the kind of mentor presence that coaches love to keep around. But the real story, the one fans can't stop talking about, is Shedeur Sanders. He's the lightning rod, the player whose presence alone generates attention, debate, and national coverage. Every time he's left on the sidelines, the questions grow louder. Every time the Browns defend their decision, the criticism intensifies. And as Stephen A. Smith and Cam Newton have already pointed out, this isn't just about football. It's about whether the Browns are willing to embrace the player who could define their future. Here's the reality. Shedeur Sanders will get his chance. It might not be today, and it might not be next week, but it's coming. And when it does, everything changes. If he thrives, he could instantly shift the Browns from a franchise mired in quarterback controversy to a team with one of the most exciting young stars in the league. If he struggles, at least the questions will finally have an answer. But as long as he's left waiting, the speculation only grows, and so does the pressure. That's why this story matters. Because for the Browns, this isn't just a depth chart. It's a defining moment. How they handle Shedeur Sanders could determine not only their season, but their reputation for years to come. So now the question shifts to you. Do you believe the Browns are protecting Sanders by keeping him at QB3, or are they sabotaging their own future by holding him back? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more updates on this saga as it unfolds, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, because trust me, this story is only just beginning.